The chandelier above the hall blazed like 1,000 stars, but all I could see was her face draining of color as her own voice filled the room. Once I marry him, I'll never have to work again. He's naive, and his mother's an easy target. The words hung in the air like poison gas. Every guest froze mid-sip, mid-bite, mid-breath. Clara Hawthorne, the woman my son was supposed to marry in 3 months, stood so fast her chair scraped against the marble floor like nails on a chalkboard. "Turn that off," she screamed, her crimson dress shimmering under the lights as she pointed at the screen behind the stage. "Turn it off." But the video kept playing. I sat perfectly still at my table near the front, hands folded in my lap, watching the panic spread across her beautiful face like cracks in porcelain. My son Lucas stood beside her, his expression shifting from confusion to horror as another clip began. "Would you have stayed quiet or exposed her right there? Comment below what you'd do if someone tried to humiliate you at your own family celebration." Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. This one showed Clara in a dim bar, laughing with a man twice her age, her hand on his knee. Then came documents, forged resumes, fake business licenses, all bearing her signature. The whispers started like wildfire. "Is that really her? Oh my God, did you hear what she just said? That poor woman. Margaret, she knew all along." I smiled faintly and took a sip of water. My heart was pounding, but my hands stayed steady. After all, I'd had months to prepare for this moment. Months of waiting, watching, gathering every piece of evidence I needed to protect my son from the woman who told her friend I disgusted her since the first day we met. The master of ceremonies, Douglas, a cheerful man I'd hired specifically for tonight, stood frozen by the podium, uncertain whether to intervene. I caught his eye and gave him the smallest nod.
"Keep playing it."
On screen, another recording played. Clara's voice again, this time clearer, sharper. His mother's an easy target. "Once I get that inheritance, I'll convince him to sell his father's farmland. Old widows don't need assets. They need retirement homes." Lucas's face went white. He turned to Clara, his voice barely a whisper. "Is this real?" She grabbed his arm, her perfectly manicured nails digging into his sleeve. "It's fake. Someone edited this. Baby, you have to believe me." "Someone?" I said quietly, my voice cutting through the chaos. Every head in the room turned toward me. I stood slowly, using my cane for support. The room went silent except for the click of my heels against the floor as I walked toward the couple at the center table. Clara's eyes locked on mine, and for the first time since I'd met her 6 months ago, I saw real fear in them. "You," she hissed. "You did this." I tilted my head slightly, the way she had when we first met. "I didn't do anything, Clara. I simply revealed what you tried so hard to hide." Around us, phones were out, cameras flashing. Reporters I'd quietly invited stood at the doors, blocking her exit. Lucas looked at me, his eyes wet. "Mom, what is this?" Clara lunged toward me, face twisted with rage. "You bitter old witch. You've ruined everything." Security guards stepped between us, holding her back as she struggled and screamed. But just as they reached the door, she twisted around one last time, mascara running down her cheeks. "This isn't over, Margaret," she snarled. "You have no idea what you've just done." 6 months before that night, I was sitting in my kitchen drinking tea when my phone rang. "Mom, I need to tell you something," Lucas said, his voice bright with excitement I hadn't heard in years. "I met someone." My heart did what every mother's heart does in that moment. It swelled with hope and sank with worry at the same time. Lucas had been alone for so long after his divorce from Rachel. 3 years of watching him rebuild himself piece by piece, and now someone new was in the picture. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," I said, stirring honey into my cup. "Tell me about her." "Her name is Clara. She's—Mom, she's extraordinary. Smart, successful, beautiful. She works in marketing for a big firm downtown. I've never felt this way about anyone. The way he said it made my stomach twist. Not because I wasn't happy for him, but because I recognized that tone. It was the same way his father had sounded when he talked about risky investments right before we lost half our savings. Blind enthusiasm. Dangerous optimism. Have you ever met someone who disrespected you the moment you met them? Let me know in the comments. I read them all. When do I get to meet her? I asked, keeping my voice light. Actually, that's why I'm calling. Dinner tonight? At Giovanni's? 7 o'clock. My hands trembled slightly as I set down my teacup. Something felt off already, though I couldn't explain why. Maybe it was mother's intuition. Maybe it was the memory of raising Lucas alone after his father's heart attack took him at 43, leaving me with a 12-year-old boy and mountains of debt. I'd worked 3 jobs back then. Cleaned offices at night, waited tables during lunch shifts, did bookkeeping on weekends. I made sure Lucas had everything: good schools, clean clothes, warm meals. I made sure he never felt the weight of what we'd lost. And now he was happy again. I should have been celebrating. So, why did I feel like something terrible was coming? That evening, I put on my best dress, a simple navy blue one I'd bought for Lucas's college graduation. I arrived at Giovanni's 10 minutes early and sat at the table Lucas had reserved, watching the door. When they walked in, I saw her immediately. Clara Hawthorne moved through the restaurant like she owned it. Tall, elegant, wearing a white dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her dark hair fell in perfect waves, her makeup flawless, her smile dazzling as she greeted the hostess by name. Lucas was beaming beside her, his hand on the small of her back, looking at her the way drowning men look at lifeboats. They approached the table, and I stood, smoothing my dress, suddenly feeling every one of my 69 years. Mom, Lucas pulled me into a hug. This is Clara. She extended her hand, and I noticed how cold it was when I shook it. Her grip was firm but brief, like she was touching something unpleasant. So you're Margaret, she said, tilting her head slightly. The mother. Not Lucas's mother. Not, it's so nice to finally meet you. Just the mother. Like it was a job title she found mildly distasteful. It's lovely to meet you, Clara, I said, smiling warmly despite the chill running down my spine. We sat down, and immediately Clara took control of the conversation. She talked about her career, her apartment in the expensive part of town, her recent trip to Paris. She name-dropped restaurants and designers I'd never heard of. Lucas hung on her every word. I tried to join in, mentioning the garden I'd been working on, but Clara's eyes glazed over. How quaint, she said, then immediately turned back to Lucas. Baby, tell your mom about the lake house we're looking at. The evening continued like that, Clara shining bright, me fading into the background, Lucas caught somewhere in between. But it was when I excused myself to the restroom that I heard it. I was coming back through the narrow hallway when I heard Clara's voice from our table. She wasn't bothering to whisper. She's so pitiful, isn't she? That dress looks like it's from a thrift store. My feet stopped moving. Lucas said something I couldn't hear, probably defending me. Clara laughed. Oh, don't be so sensitive. I'm sure she's lovely. Just not exactly sophisticated, is she? I stood there in that hallway for a long moment, my hand pressed against the wall, deciding what to do. I could have confronted her right there. Could have told Lucas what I'd heard. Could have made a scene and proved her right, that I was just a pitiful old woman who couldn't accept her son's happiness. Instead, I walked back to the table with a smile. The weeks after that first dinner were torture. Clara became a constant presence in Lucas's life, which meant she became a constant presence in mine. She'd show up at family dinners with expensive wine and backhanded compliments. She'd suggest Lucas update his wardrobe, his car, his entire life to match her standards. And slowly, painfully, I watched my son change. He started canceling our weekly breakfasts. He stopped calling as much. When he did visit, Clara was always with him, steering every conversation, making every decision. Lucas, honey, your mother's couch is lovely, but wouldn't a new one be better for your back? She'd say sweetly, implying mine was too old, too worn, too embarrassing to sit on. If you think Margaret should protect her son quietly, hit that like button. Justice is coming. One Sunday afternoon, I invited them over for lunch. I'd spent all morning cooking Lucas's favorite meal, pot roast with carrots and potatoes, just like his grandmother used to make. Clara took one look at the table and wrinkled her nose. Oh, we're trying to eat clean now. You know, organic, low carb. But this looks nice. She picked at her food while scrolling through her phone. Lucas ate quietly, avoiding my eyes. After they left, I found myself crying over the dishes. Not because of the insult to my cooking, but because I was losing my son to someone who didn't truly love him. She loved what he could give her. His kindness. His bank account. His dead father's legacy. That's when my friend Olivia called. Margaret, we need to talk, she said, her voice tight with urgency. It's about Clara. We met at a small cafe downtown the next morning. Olivia worked at Harrison and Associates, a marketing firm across from where Clara claimed to work. She slid a folder across the table, her expression grim. I wasn't sure if I should tell you this, Olivia said quietly. But if Lucas was my son, I'd want to know. I opened the folder with shaking hands. Inside were printouts, social media posts, articles, and a police report from 3 years ago. Clara Hawthorne wasn't who she claimed to be. Her resume was half fiction. The senior marketing position at a prestigious firm? She'd been fired after 6 months for falsifying client reports. The successful campaign she bragged about? Stolen from a junior colleague she'd thrown under the bus. But it got worse. There were photos of Clara with different men, all wealthy, all significantly older. Each relationship had ended the same way: restraining orders, missing money, accusations of manipulation. One man, a lawyer named Kenneth Briggs, had written a detailed statement. Clara had convinced him to put his beach house in her name, then tried to sell it while he was out of the country. He'd caught her just in time, but she disappeared before he could press charges. She's a professional, Olivia said softly. She finds vulnerable men with money and bleeds them dry. Then she moves on to the next one. My hands trembled as I closed the folder. Does Lucas know any of this? Would he believe you if you told him? That was the question, wasn't it? My son was so in love, so desperate to feel whole again after his divorce, that he'd believe anything Clara told him. If I showed him this evidence, he'd think I was jealous, possessive, trying to ruin his happiness. Clara would spin it perfectly. She'd cry, play the victim, make me look like the villain. What do? I whispered. Olivia reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You wait. You watch. And when she slips up, because she will, you make sure everyone sees it. I walked home that day with a folder tucked under my arm, my mind racing. 2 weeks later, Lucas called with the news I'd been dreading. Mom, I proposed. Clara said yes. We're getting married in 3 months. His voice was so happy, so full of hope. That's wonderful, sweetheart, I managed to say. We're having an engagement party. Mom, I want you to give a speech. It would mean everything to me. A speech. At their engagement party, where all of Clara's wealthy friends would gather to celebrate her latest conquest. Of course, I said. I'd be honored. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen for a long time, staring at that folder. Then I picked up the phone and called someone I never thought I'd need, a private investigator who owed my late husband a favor. I need evidence, I told him. Video, audio, documents. Everything you can find. And I need it before the engagement party. If Clara wanted to play games with my son's heart, I'd show her what happens when you underestimate a mother's love. The private investigator's name was Marcus Chun, and he was worth every penny. For 3 weeks, He followed Clara like a shadow. He traced her past, interviewed her former victims, and uncovered secrets she'd buried so deep she thought they'd never surface. When he finally came to my house with his findings, the folder he handed me was 3 times thicker than Olivia's. "Mrs. Winslow," he said, his expression grave, "I've been doing this work for 20 years. This woman is one of the most calculating people I've ever investigated. Would you expose a liar publicly, or keep quiet for family peace? Drop your answer below." I poured us both tea and opened the folder. Inside were bank statements showing Clara had opened credit cards in her ex-boyfriend's name, maxing them out before disappearing. There were text messages where she bragged to friends about landing a rich one this time. There were voicemails she'd left for a woman named Patricia. "Once I get the ring, I'll have him sell that stupid farmland his dead dad left him. Old ladies don't need property." That farmland was the last piece of my husband I had left. 20 acres where Lucas and his father used to fish every summer, where we'd scattered his ashes. And Clara wanted to sell it like it was nothing. But the most damning evidence was a video Marcus had obtained from one of Clara's former friends, a woman named Bethany who'd finally agreed to talk after Clara had stolen her identity 2 years ago. In the video, Clara sat in a dark bar, drunk and careless, talking to Bethany about her strategy. "The key is to make them feel special," Clara said, laughing. "Make them think you're the answer to all their problems. Lucas is perfect, recently divorced, emotionally vulnerable, and his mom is so pathetic she'll be easy to push aside. Once we're married, I'll convince him to move, cut ties with her, and then—" She made a gesture like counting money. "That inheritance is as good as mine." I watched that video 3 times, my chest tightening with each viewing. This woman didn't love my son. She didn't even see him as human. He was just a mark, a target, a means to an end. And she thought I was too pathetic to stop her. "Can you get this ready for presentation?" I asked Marcus. "Clean audio, clear video, professionally edited?" He nodded slowly. "What are you planning, Mrs. Winslow?" "Justice," I said simply. "The kind that makes sure everyone sees who she really is." Over the next 2 weeks, I became someone I barely recognized. During the day, I played the dutiful mother-in-law-to-be, attending dress fittings and cake tastings with a smile. I let Clara make her little comments about my outdated taste and simple lifestyle. But at night, I worked with Marcus and a video editor he recommended, putting together a presentation that would expose every lie Clara had ever told. We organized it chronologically, starting with her fake resume, moving through her previous victims, and ending with that devastating video of her laughing about manipulating Lucas. It was methodical, thorough, undeniable. Lucas called me one evening, 2 weeks before the engagement party. "Mom, are you okay? You've been quiet lately." My heart ached. I wanted to tell him everything right then, to spare him the public humiliation that was coming. But I knew him too well. He'd defend her. He'd believe her tears over my evidence. He'd choose her, and then I'd lose him forever. "I'm fine, sweetheart," I lied. "Just emotional about seeing you so happy." "Clara really likes you, you know," he said, and I had to bite my tongue to keep from screaming. "She says you remind her of her own mother." Her own mother had a restraining order against her, according to Marcus's report. But I didn't say that. "That's sweet," I managed. "I just want my 2 favorite women to get along," Lucas said softly. After we hung up, I cried for an hour. Not because I was sad, but because I knew what was coming would hurt him. It would shatter his trust, break his heart, maybe even make him hate me for a while. But better that than watching Clara destroy him slowly, piece by piece, until there was nothing left of the man I'd raised. The night before the engagement party, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, running through every possible outcome. What if Clara somehow convinced everyone the evidence was fake? What if Lucas never forgave me? What if I was making the biggest mistake of my life? But then I remembered her words. His mother is so pathetic she'll be easy to push aside. And I remembered my husband's voice from years ago, right before he died. Margaret, promise me something. Promise you'll always protect our boy, no matter what it costs you. I promise, I whispered into the darkness of my bedroom. The next morning, I put on my best dress, did my makeup carefully, and drove to the venue where Clara's perfect engagement party was about to become her worst nightmare. The engagement party was being held at the Riverside Manor, a venue so expensive I'd gasped when Lucas first mentioned it. Clara insisted. He'd said apologetically. She wants everything to be perfect. Perfect. That word kept echoing in my head as I walked through the grand entrance, past the ice sculptures and champagne fountains, into a world designed to showcase Clara's triumph. The hall was filled with her people, wealthy friends in designer clothes, business associates who air-kissed and name-dropped, influencers posing for photos by the floral arrangements. I recognized maybe 5 people total, mostly Lucas's old college friends who looked as uncomfortable as I felt. Comment quiet justice if you believe in poetic karma. Clara held court at the center of it all, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my car. She was radiant, touching Lucas's arm possessively, laughing at jokes that weren't funny, accepting congratulations like a queen receiving tribute. When she saw me, her smile tightened just slightly. Margaret, you made it. We were worried you might get lost finding the place. The implication was clear. Someone like me didn't belong in a venue like this. Wouldn't miss it for the world, I said sweetly. I found my assigned seat, table 9, near the back, far from the main action. Clara had made sure to seat me with Lucas's elderly aunt and a couple I'd never met. Another subtle message. You're not important enough for the family table. I sat down, smoothed my napkin, and waited. Douglas, the master of ceremonies, was making his rounds, clipboard in hand. I'd met with him 3 times over the past week, going over every detail of the video presentation I'd planned. He'd been hesitant at first. Mrs. Winslow, are you sure about this? It's quite explosive. I'm sure, I'd told him firmly. And I'm paying you double to make sure it goes exactly as planned. Money talks, even to people with consciences. Now he caught my eye across the room and gave me a subtle nod. Everything was ready. Dinner was served, some fancy chicken dish with a sauce I couldn't pronounce. Around me, people ate and chatted and drank, oblivious to what was coming. At the main table, Clara was holding court, telling some story about a celebrity she'd supposedly met. Lucas laughed at all the right moments, but I could see the tiredness around his eyes. She was exhausting him already, and they weren't even married yet. Then came the speeches. Lucas's best friend went first, telling embarrassing college stories that made everyone laugh. Then Clara's maid of honor, a woman named Stephanie, who talked about Clara's incredible journey and inspiring success story. Every word was a lie, but no one knew that yet. Then Douglas's voice rang out over the microphone. And now, the mother of the groom, Mrs. Margaret Winslow, would like to say a few words. The room fell quiet. All eyes turned to me. Clara's expression was one of barely concealed disdain. She probably expected me to give some boring, sentimental speech about how happy I was to welcome her into the family. I stood slowly, using my cane for support, and made my way to the podium. The walk felt like miles. My heart was pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. But when I reached the microphone and looked out at all those faces, something calm settled over me. Thank you all for being here tonight, I began, my voice steady. I've waited a long time to see my son happy again. Lucas has been through so much, and as his mother, all I've ever wanted is to see him with someone who truly loves him. Polite applause. Clara smiled tightly. But love, I continued, real love, is built on truth, on honesty, on seeing someone for who they really are, not who they pretend to be. The room shifted slightly. People started paying closer attention. So tonight, I want to make sure everyone here sees the truth. I looked directly at Clara. All of it. Her face went pale. I nodded to Douglas, and the lights dimmed. What's happening? Clara's voice cut through the darkness. Lucas, what is this? But the screen behind the stage was already flickering to life, and there was no stopping what came next. The first image that appeared on the screen was innocent enough. A photo of Lucas as a little boy, gap-toothed and grinning, holding up a fish he'd caught with his father. People smiled. A few "Us" rippled through the crowd. Then came more photos. Lucas's high school graduation, his college acceptance letter, him and me at his father's grave on the anniversary of his death. Clara relaxed slightly in her seat. She probably thought this was just a sentimental mother's tribute. But then the images changed. A document appeared on the screen. Clara's resume from the Harrison and Associates application. Professional, impressive, detailing 8 years of marketing experience. Then, side by side with it, another document appeared. The real employment records Marcus had obtained. 3 jobs in 8 years. All ending in termination or sudden resignation. References that didn't exist. Degrees from universities she'd never attended. If you think karma should be served cold, tap the like button. The storm is coming. The whispers started immediately. Is that her resume? Those dates don't match. Wait, is this real? Clara stood up, so fast her chair tipped backward. This is insane. Someone stop this right now. But Douglas kept the video rolling, just as I'd paid him to do. Next came photos. Clara in a nightclub, draped over a man I recognized from Marcus's report as Kenneth Briggs, the lawyer she'd tried to con out of his beach house. Then Clara signing documents, her signature clear as day, transferring property that wasn't hers to sell. Lucas's face had gone completely white. He stared at the screen like he couldn't process what he was seeing. Baby, I can explain. Clara grabbed his arm, her voice desperate. This is all fake. Your mother hired someone to... But her voice was drowned out by the audio that suddenly filled the hall. It was her voice, crystal clear, talking to her friend Bethany in that dark bar. Lucas is perfect, recently divorced, emotionally vulnerable, and his mom is so pathetic she'll be easy to push aside. The room erupted. People gasped. Phones came out. Clara's friends started whispering furiously to each other. I stood at the podium, perfectly calm, watching everything unfold exactly as I'd planned. The video continued, showing text messages where Clara discussed draining Lucas's accounts and getting rid of the old lady. It showed bank statements from her previous victims. It showed police reports and restraining orders. Every lie, every scheme, every heartless calculation. Clara was screaming now, trying to get to the screen, trying to stop what couldn't be stopped. You can't do this. I'll sue you. I'll ruin you. But I simply smiled and said, You already tried to ruin me, Clara. The difference is, I have the truth on my side. Lucas finally stood. His face was a mixture of shock, betrayal, and something else I couldn't quite read. He looked at Clara, then at me, then back at the screen where her lies played out for everyone to see. Lucas, please, Clara begged, mascara starting to run. You have to believe me. She's manipulating all of this because she can't stand to see you happy. But Lucas's expression had gone cold. Is any of this real? Did you ever love me, or was I just... He couldn't finish the sentence. Clara's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. For the first time since I'd met her, she had nothing to say. The video ended with one final clip, Clara's voice again. Once I get that inheritance, I'll convince him to sell his father's farmland. Old widows don't need property. The screen went black. The silence that followed was deafening. Then slowly, people started standing. Not to applaud, but to leave. Clara's friends gathered their purses and coats, avoiding eye contact with her. Business associates deleted photos from their phones. The influencers who'd been documenting the perfect engagement party suddenly found somewhere else to be. At the back of the hall, the reporters I'd invited were taking notes, cameras rolling. Clara saw them and her face transformed from shock to pure rage. She whirled on me. You invited the press? You planned all of this. I planned to protect my son, I said simply. You planned to destroy him. I just made sure everyone knew the difference. Security guards were moving toward Clara now, not the venue's security, but officers Marcus had arranged to be present. They had warrants for her arrest related to the identity theft and fraud charges from her previous victims. Clara Hawthorne, one officer said, "You need to come with us." No. She tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. The hall had cleared except for Lucas, me, the officers, and a few stunned stragglers. As they led her toward the exit in handcuffs, she looked back at me one last time. Her perfect makeup was ruined, her designer dress wrinkled, her mask completely shattered. "I hope you're happy," she spat. "You've destroyed your son's life." I met her gaze steadily. "No, Clara. I saved it." The doors closed behind her with a heavy finality, and suddenly the enormous hall felt very empty. Lucas stood frozen at the main table, staring at nothing. And I realized that while I'd won the battle, the real war, earning back my son's trust, was just beginning. For a long moment, Lucas just stood there. The grand hall that had been filled with laughter and music minutes ago now felt like a tomb. Abandoned champagne glasses sat on tables, half-eaten dinners growing cold, rose petals scattered across the floor like evidence of something beautiful that had died. I stayed at the podium, my hands gripping the edges to keep them from shaking. I'd done what I had to do. I'd saved my son from a woman who would have destroyed him. So, why did I feel like I might lose him anyway? Lucas finally moved. He walked slowly toward me, his footsteps echoing on the marble floor. His face was blank, unreadable. When he reached me, he stopped. Just stopped and stared. "Mom," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "How long have you known? Stay till the end. The truth is about to explode." "What do you think will happen next?" "Weeks," I admitted. "My friend Olivia warned me. I hired an investigator to be sure." "Weeks." He repeated the word like it was foreign. "You knew for weeks that I was engaged to someone who was using you," I finished gently. "Yes." His jaw clenched. "And you didn't think to tell me? To sit me down and show me the evidence privately? You had to humiliate me in front of 200 people?" The accusation in his voice cut deeper than any of Clara's insults ever had. "If I'd told you privately, would you have believed me?" I asked softly. He opened his mouth to respond, then closed it. We both knew the answer. He would have thought I was jealous, overprotective, trying to sabotage his happiness. He would have believed Clara's tears over my evidence. "You should have tried," he said finally. "You should have given me the chance to make my own decision. And let her drain your accounts? Sell your father's land? Ruin your life before you saw who she really was? That was my life to ruin." His voice cracked, raw with emotion. "I'm not a child anymore, Mom. I don't need you fighting my battles." "But I'm still your mother," I said, my own voice breaking. "And I'll always fight for you, even when you hate me for it." He looked away, his hands running through his hair the way he used to when he was stressed as a teenager. "I don't hate you. I need time. I need to process all of this." He turned and walked toward the exit without looking back. I watched him go, tears finally spilling down my cheeks. Douglas approached carefully, like he was afraid I might shatter. "Mrs. Winslow? Is there anything you need?" "Just send me the bill," I said quietly. "And Douglas? Thank you for not stopping the video." "For what it's worth," he said gently, "you did the right thing. That woman was dangerous. Maybe. But right now, sitting alone in this empty hall surrounded by the ruins of what should have been a celebration, I wasn't sure if doing the right thing and doing the good thing were the same." The next few days were torture. Lucas didn't call, didn't text, Didn't answer when I reached out to him. I saw the news coverage, of course. Local woman exposed as serial con artist at own engagement party. The story went viral. Clara's face was everywhere, along with photos of her being let out in handcuffs. The firm she'd defrauded pressed charges. Other victims came forward. The district attorney's office called me to testify. It became a media circus, and somewhere in the middle of it all, my son was trying to piece his life back together. Alone. A week after the engagement party, my doorbell rang at 10 o'clock at night. I opened it to find Lucas standing on my porch, his eyes red-rimmed and exhausted. "Can I come in?" he asked. I stepped aside wordlessly, and he walked past me into the living room where he'd grown up. He sat on the old couch Clara had mocked, the one his father had picked out 25 years ago. For a long time, he just sat there, staring at his hands. "I went to therapy," he said finally. "The therapist said I have a pattern of trusting the wrong people, of wanting so badly to be loved that I ignore red flags." My heart ached for him. "She said it probably started after Dad died. After watching you struggle to keep us afloat. I felt like I had to be perfect, had to not cause problems, had to accept whatever love I could find without questioning it." "Lucas, let me finish." His voice was gentle but firm. The therapist also said that sometimes people who love us have to do hard things to protect us. Things that hurt in the moment, but save us in the long run. He finally looked up at me, and I saw tears in his eyes. "I'm not ready to say thank you yet," he said. "I'm still angry that you didn't trust me enough to tell me privately. I'm embarrassed that 200 people watched me get betrayed. I'm hurt that the woman I thought I'd spend my life with saw me as nothing but a paycheck." I nodded, my own tears falling. "I understand. But I'm also alive," he continued. "My bank accounts are intact. Dad's land is still ours. And I'm not married to someone who would have destroyed everything you and Dad built." He stood up and crossed the room to where I sat, then knelt down in front of me like he used to when he was small and needed comfort. "So, I'm not saying thank you," he whispered, "but I am saying, I love you, Mom. Even when you drive me crazy. Even when you humiliate me trying to save me. I love you." I pulled him into my arms and held him while we both cried, for what he'd lost, for what I'd had to do, for all the ways love sometimes has to hurt before it can heal. "I love you too, baby," I whispered into his hair. "I always will." Outside, rain started to fall, washing away the last remnants of Clara Hawthorne's lies. And inside my small, modest house with its thrift store furniture and outdated decor, my son and I began the slow work of healing. 3 months after the engagement party, I was gardening when I heard a car pull into my driveway. Lucas had been visiting more regularly, slowly rebuilding the relationship that Clara had tried so hard to break. We were careful with each other, gentle, like two people learning to trust again after a betrayal. But this wasn't Lucas's car. I stood, brushing dirt from my knees, and saw Olivia rushing toward me with a newspaper in her hand. "Margaret, have you seen this?" She thrust the paper at me, pointing to a headline on page 3, "Clara Hawthorne sentenced to 5 years for fraud and identity theft." If you believe in truth over revenge, hit subscribe. The best justice is about to unfold. I read the article slowly. Clara had been found guilty on multiple counts. The evidence Marcus and I had gathered, combined with testimony from her previous victims, had been overwhelming. The judge had called her a danger to society and a predator who targeted vulnerable individuals for financial gain. 5 years. It wasn't forever, but it was enough. "There's more," Olivia said, flipping to another page. "Look at this." It was an editorial piece titled, "The Mother Who Knew, When Family Protection Crosses into Public Humiliation." My stomach dropped. The article debated whether I'd done the right thing. Some praised me for exposing Clara and protecting my son. Others criticized my methods, arguing that I'd humiliated Lucas unnecessarily, that I should have handled it privately, that I'd crossed a line. Don't read that garbage, Olivia said quickly. People who weren't there don't understand what you were dealing with. But I couldn't stop reading. The comments section was brutal. Half the people called me a hero. The other half called me controlling, manipulative, a mother who couldn't let her son live his own life. Margaret, Olivia said gently, taking the paper from my hands. You did what you had to do. Clara would have destroyed Lucas. You know that. But did I have to destroy him in the process? I asked quietly. That question had haunted me for 3 months. Every time Lucas visited and I saw the lingering hurt in his eyes, I wondered if I'd made the right choice. Every time he flinched away from getting too close to people, I wondered if I'd damaged him more than Clara ever could have. You didn't destroy him, Olivia said firmly. You saved him. And someday, when he's fully healed, he'll thank you for it. I wanted to believe her. That evening, Lucas called. Mom, I saw the article. Are you okay? The fact that he was checking on me, despite everything, made my chest tight with love. I'm fine, sweetheart. How are you? Honestly, I'm relieved, he said. Knowing she's going to prison, it feels like I can finally breathe. Like she can't hurt anyone else the way she tried to hurt me. We talked for an hour about small things, his work, my garden, a movie he'd watched. Normal things. Healing things. Before we hung up, he said, Mom, I know I said I wasn't ready to thank you, but I'm getting there. Every day, I'm getting closer. Take all the time you need, I told him. I'm not going anywhere. After we hung up, I sat on my porch watching the sunset, thinking about justice. People wanted it to be simple. They wanted clear heroes and villains, obvious right and wrong. But real life was messy. Sometimes protecting the people you love meant making choices that hurt. Sometimes justice meant sacrificing your own comfort, your own reputation, even your relationship with the person you were trying to save. Clara was in prison now. Lucas was safe. The truth had won. But I still lay awake some nights wondering if I'd done the right thing, or just the necessary thing. Maybe they weren't always the same. A week later, I got a call from Kenneth Briggs, the lawyer Clara had tried to con. He wanted to thank me for exposing her. You probably saved dozens of other people from going through what I went through, he said. That woman is a professional predator, and you stopped her. Then came calls from 2 of Clara's other victims. One woman cried on the phone, saying she'd lost her entire savings to Clara and had been too ashamed to report it. You gave us all justice, she said. Slowly, I started to see the bigger picture. Yes, I'd hurt Lucas in the short term, but I'd also stopped Clara from hurting countless others. The engagement party humiliation had been painful, but it had been necessary to make sure Clara's crimes couldn't be hidden or explained away. Sometimes love means protecting not just one person, but everyone they might harm. 1 month before the anniversary of that terrible engagement party, Lucas showed up at my house with Thai food and a nervous smile. I brought dinner, he said, and I wanted to talk. We sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd planned Clara's exposure, where I'd cried over potentially losing my son, where I'd made the hardest decision of my life. Mom, Lucas said, pushing his noodles around his plate. I've been thinking a lot about what happened, about why you did what you did. I waited, my heart pounding, and I realized something. You didn't expose Clara because you didn't trust me. You exposed her because you knew I couldn't see clearly, because love had made me blind. He looked up at me with wet eyes. You did the hard thing. The thing that might cost you our relationship, because protecting me mattered more than keeping me happy. A tear rolled down my cheek. So, I want to say thank you, he continued. Thank you for being braver than I was. Thank you for seeing what I couldn't. Thank you for loving me enough to let me hate you, if that's what it took to keep me safe. I reached across the table and took his hand. You're my son. I'll always protect you, no matter what it costs me. I know, he said softly. I know that now. We sat there holding hands across the table, Two people who'd been broken and were slowly becoming whole again. Outside, the world kept turning. Clara stayed in prison. The news moved on to other scandals. Life continued. But in my small kitchen, healing was finally happening. And sometimes, that's the only justice that really matters. 6 months after Clara's sentencing, life had settled into something that almost felt normal. Lucas was dating again, cautiously this time, taking things slow. He'd introduced me to a woman named Sarah who worked as a teacher and made him laugh without making him feel small. I liked her immediately, though I kept my opinions to myself unless asked. I'd learned my lesson about interfering. But then one Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Winslow? This is Detective Rachel Morrison from the District Attorney's Office. I need to speak with you about Clara Hawthorne. My stomach dropped. What about her? Comment, truth wins if you believe no lie stays hidden forever. She's requested to speak with you. She says she has information about other potential victims, but she'll only share it if you visit her in person. I almost laughed. You can't be serious. I know it's unusual, the detective said, but we have reason to believe she was part of a larger network of con artists. If she's willing to cooperate, we could potentially help dozens of people recover stolen assets. And she'll only talk to me? Apparently, yes. You don't have to do this, Mrs. Winslow. But I wanted to give you the option. I sat with that phone call for 2 days, torn between curiosity and self-preservation. Finally, I called Lucas. What do you think I should do? He was quiet for a long moment. Do you want to see her? Part of me does, I admitted. Part of me wants to look her in the eye and see if she's actually sorry, or if this is just another manipulation. Then go, Lucas said. But Mom, don't go alone. Take Olivia with you. And remember, you don't owe her anything. Not forgiveness, not understanding, nothing. So the following week, Olivia and I drove to the correctional facility where Clara was serving her sentence. The visiting room was stark and cold, all concrete and fluorescent lights. When they brought Clara in, I barely recognized her. Gone was the polished, sophisticated woman who'd commanded every room she entered. This Clara had dark circles under her eyes, no makeup, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore a prison jumpsuit that hung loose on her frame. When she saw me, something flickered in her expression. Surprise? Relief? I couldn't tell. We sat across from each other with a table between us, and a guard watching from the corner. Thank you for coming, Clara said quietly. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't, I replied. Why did you ask for me? She looked down at her hands, which were folded on the table. Because you're the only person who beat me. The only one who saw through everything and actually stopped me. That's not a compliment. I know. She met my eyes, and for the first time since I'd known her, there was no calculation there. Just exhaustion. I've been in therapy here. Court mandated. And my therapist asked me to think about all the people I'd hurt, all the lives I'd damaged. And yours kept coming up. Not because I destroyed your life, I didn't. But because you were the only mother who actually protected her child from me. Her voice cracked slightly. My own mother never did that. She let her boyfriend abuse me for years because she didn't want to be alone. So when I saw you, this woman who would risk everything, including her relationship with her son, just to keep him safe, I hated you for it. I said nothing, just waited. I hated you because you represented everything I'd never had. A mother who actually gave a damn, who saw danger coming and threw herself in front of it. Consequences be damned. Clara wiped at her eyes with the back of her hand. So, I made it my mission to hurt you, to prove that your love for Lucas was a weakness I could exploit. But you couldn't, I said quietly. No. Because your love was a weakness. It was armor. It was power. She took a shaky breath. And I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that you were right. About all of it. And Lucas is lucky to have you. Olivia's hand found mine under the table, squeezing gently. The detective said you have information, I said, steering us back to the reason I'd come. Clara nodded and pulled out a piece of paper. There are others. A whole network of people who do what I did. I can give you names, methods, targets. I can help you stop them before they destroy more families. Why would you do that? Because maybe if I help stop even one person from doing what I did, it'll mean something. Maybe it won't fix what I broke, but at least it'll be something. I took the paper from her and read through the names and details. If this information was accurate, it could indeed help law enforcement prevent future cons. I'll give this to the detective, I said. But Clara? This doesn't change what you did. It doesn't erase Lucas's pain or the money you stole or the lives you ruined. I know, she said softly. I know. As Olivia and I stood to leave, Clara called out one more time. Mrs. Winslow? Tell Lucas, tell him I'm sorry. He deserved so much better than what I gave him. I turned back to her. You're right. He did. And now he has it. We left Clara sitting in that cold visiting room, and I didn't look back. On the drive home, Olivia asked, Do you think she meant it? The apology? I think she's learned that actions have consequences, I said. Whether that's the same as actually being sorry, I don't know. And honestly, it doesn't matter. She can't hurt Lucas anymore, and that's all I care about. When I got home, I called Detective Morrison and handed over Clara's information. Within weeks, they'd arrested 3 other con artists and prevented at least 2 ongoing scams. Clara's cooperation earned her a reduced sentence. She'd be out in 3 years instead of 5. Part of me was angry about that. But another part, the part that understood that people were complicated, that even villains could do good things, that part was okay with it. Justice didn't always look the way we expected it to. Sometimes it was messy and incomplete and imperfect. But it was still justice. 1 year to the day after the engagement party, Lucas knocked on my door with a bottle of wine and a small box wrapped in silver paper. Happy anniversary, he said with a wry smile. Or unhappy anniversary? I'm not sure what to call the day my engagement exploded. We sat on my porch, the same porch where I'd plotted Clara's exposure, and opened the wine. I got you something, Lucas said, handing me the box. Open it. Inside was a small silver frame with a quote engraved on it. A mother's love doesn't make her child dependent. It makes them brave enough to face the truth. My eyes filled with tears. I found that quote last month, Lucas explained, and it made me think of you, of what you did, of how terrifying it must have been to risk losing me just to save me. If this story touched your heart, like, share, and subscribe. And remember, quiet people aren't weak. They're just waiting for the right moment to speak. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, I admitted. Harder than raising you alone after your father died. Harder than working 3 jobs to keep us afloat. Because at least then, you still loved me without question. But exposing Clara, I knew it might cost me you. But you did it anyway, Lucas said softly. Because that's what real love does. It protects, even when it hurts. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Sarah and I are getting serious, Lucas said eventually. And before you ask, yes, I've learned my lesson. I'm taking it slow. I'm watching for red flags. And I actually listen when my gut tells me something's off. I'm happy for you, sweetheart. She wants to meet you properly. Not just a quick hello, but like a real family dinner. Here, if that's okay. My heart swelled. I'd love that. And Mom? If you ever see something wrong with Sarah, with anyone, I want you to tell me. Privately, preferably, he added with a small smile. But I want you to tell me. Because you were right. A mother's instinct is sacred. The silver frame in my hands caught the last rays of sunlight, making the words shimmer. Over the next few months, life continued its forward march. Sarah became a regular presence at Sunday dinners. Lucas laughed more easily, trusted more carefully, lived more fully. He'd learned that love shouldn't cost you your sense of self, and that lesson alone made everything I'd done worthwhile. I kept the newspaper articles about Clara's sentencing in a drawer, not out of pride, but as a reminder. A reminder that sometimes doing the right thing doesn't feel good. Sometimes it feels terrible, and you second-guess yourself for months, and you wonder if you've destroyed more than you've saved. But then you see your child heal. You see them become wiser without becoming bitter. You see them learn from pain without being destroyed by it. And you know it was worth it. One afternoon, I was tending my garden when the mailman delivered a letter with a return address from the correctional facility. My hands shook as I opened it. Dear Mrs. Winslow, Clara's handwriting was surprisingly neat. I'm being released next month. I wanted you to know that I'm leaving the state. I'm going to live with my aunt in Oregon and start fresh. I won't contact Lucas. I won't be in your lives. But I wanted to thank you one more time for stopping me before I completely destroyed myself. What you did at that engagement party, it saved me too. It forced me to face who I'd become. And while prison has been hell, it's also been the first time in my adult life that I've had to actually deal with the consequences of my choices.
So, thank you.
I know that's weird to say, but thank you, Clara. I read the letter twice, then folded it carefully and put it in the drawer with the newspaper articles. Then I went back to my garden, my hands in the soil, thinking about growth and decay and the strange ways justice manifests in the world. That evening, Lucas called to tell me Sarah had met his college friends and they all loved her. His voice was bright with happiness, real happiness, not the desperate, clinging kind he'd had with Clara. I'm proud of you, I told him. You've come so far. We both have, he replied. Hey, Mom, I love you. I love you too, baby. After we hung up, I sat on my porch watching the stars come out, thinking about everything that had happened. The lies, the betrayal, the public exposure, the slow healing afterward. People always want revenge stories to be simple. They want the villain punished and the hero victorious and everything tied up in a neat bow. But real life isn't like that. Real justice is complicated and messy, and sometimes the people you hurt are the ones you're trying to save. Sometimes protecting someone means losing them for a while. Sometimes love looks like cruelty until time gives it context. But here's what I learned. Revenge doesn't always come from anger. Sometimes it comes from love, the fierce, protective, unshakable kind that refuses to let evil win. The kind that's willing to be the villain in someone else's story if it means keeping them safe. The kind that whispers instead of shouts, waits instead of rushes, and strikes with precision when the moment is exactly right. Clara had called me pathetic.
Weak.
Easy to push aside. She'd learned, in the end, that quiet people aren't weak at all. We're just patient. And when we finally speak, the world listens. As I sat there under the stars, I thought about all the mothers out there facing impossible choices. All the people protecting loved ones who don't yet understand they need protecting. All the quiet warriors fighting battles no one sees. To them, I'd say this: trust your instincts.
Do the hard thing.
Stand firm even when you stand alone. Because sometimes the whisper of justice is louder than any scream. And sometimes love means being willing to be misunderstood, to be hated, to be called controlling or manipulative or cruel, if that's what it takes to save the people you love from destroying themselves. I picked up the silver frame Lucas had given me and read the quote again. A mother's love doesn't make her child dependent. It makes them brave enough to face the truth.
Truth.
That's what I'd given my son, even when it hurt, even when it cost us both something precious, even when I wasn't sure we'd survive it. But we had survived. And more than that, we'd grown stronger. The engagement party that was supposed to celebrate Clara's victory had become her downfall. The moment she thought she'd won was the moment she lost everything. And me, the pathetic old woman she thought she could easily push aside, I was still here, still standing, still protecting, still winning. Because in the end, truth doesn't just win. It endures. It outlasts every lie, every manipulation, every carefully constructed facade. And love, real, fierce, protective love, is the most powerful weapon of all. I hope you enjoyed this story and found something meaningful in Margaret's journey. If this resonated with you, please subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss our next story. We share tales of courage, justice, and the quiet strength it takes to protect the people we love. Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts. Your stories inspire others who might be facing similar situations. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice to protect someone you love? Share your experience. You never know who needs to hear that they're not alone. Until next time, remember, never underestimate the quiet ones. They might just be waiting for the perfect moment to change everything. Subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join our family. See you in the next story.